At my husband's funeral, while his coffin was being lowered into the ground, my phone vibrated in my hand. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. It said, "I am still alive. Trust no one. Not even your children." My heart stopped beating for a moment. If the man I had just buried was not my husband, then who was in that grave? And how long had my family been lying to me? Before we begin this story, write the name of your city in the comments so I know where you are listening from. Please subscribe to this channel, and may those who subscribe be given good luck, good health, and may everything in their lives become easy, amen. The morning my husband was buried, the sky over Briar Hollow was gray and low, like it had decided not to look at us. I stood beside the grave with my hands folded tight in front of my stomach, feeling the weight of 63 years in my bones. My knees ached. My chest felt hollow. The wind brushed against my black dress, thin and cold, and I did not pull it closer. My name is Ivy Mae Caldwell, and I was burying my husband of 41 years. Elias Caldwell had been a quiet man. He worked at the paper mill until it closed, then fixed radios and old televisions for neighbors who still believed things should be repaired, not replaced. People described him as simple, steady, harmless. As his wife, I thought I knew him better than anyone. That morning I realized how little that mattered. The funeral was small. Too small for a man who had lived that long. A few church members sat on white folding chairs. Pastor Glenn stood with his Bible open, his voice calm and measured. My children stood a short distance from me, not close enough to touch, not far enough to escape. Naomi wore dark glasses even though the sun never came out. Her posture was stiff, her mouth tight. She kept checking her phone like the world had not stopped just because her father was in a box. Reuben stood with his hands in his coat pockets, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the ground. He had not slept. I could see it in the way his face sagged and his jaw clenched every few seconds. No one cried loudly. There were no gasps, no collapse to the ground. Just quiet breathing and the sound of dirt being prepared nearby. As the pastor spoke about eternal rest, my mind wandered to the kitchen table 2 weeks earlier. Elias had been drinking coffee, complaining about the cold mornings. He had rubbed his chest once and said it was nothing. That night he did not wake up. They said it was his heart. I accepted that explanation because it was easy. Because at my age I was tired of asking questions that might break things I could no longer fix. When the prayer ended, the crowd stood. Chairs scraped softly against the ground. Someone sniffed. Someone else cleared their throat. That was when my phone vibrated. I almost ignored it. It felt wrong to look at a screen while my husband lay inches away from being covered in dirt. But the vibration came again, stronger this time, buzzing against my palm like it demanded attention. I lowered my eyes. A message sat on the screen. No name. Just a number I did not recognize. I am still alive. Trust no one. My heart began to pound, slow at first, then faster. I read it again. And again. Still alive. I felt light-headed. The sounds around me faded. The chairs, the pastor, the murmured condolences all drifted away as if someone had closed a door. This was a cruel joke. Someone trying to hurt an old woman on the worst day of her life. My fingers shook as another message appeared. I am not in the coffin. They are watching you. Do not trust the children. My breath caught in my throat. I tasted metal. My vision blurred. I looked up at Naomi. She was already looking at me. Her head tilted slightly, like she was studying my face for a reaction she expected. I turned to Reuben. He flinched when our eyes met, then looked away too quickly. The phone felt heavy in my hand. My chest tightened with something that was not grief anymore. Fear had a different weight. I slipped the phone into my purse and forced myself to stand still. I did not scream. I did not faint. I did not say a word. The casket was lowered. Dirt followed. The sound of soil hitting wood was dull and final. I stared at the grave and thought about the message again. If Elias was alive, then someone else was in that box. And if someone else was in that box, then the life I thought I had lived was not the one I believed in. People came to hug me. Their arms felt unfamiliar. Their words slid past me without meaning. I nodded, thanked them, listened to nothing. When Naomi finally stepped forward, she hugged me briefly. Her perfume was sharp. Her voice was controlled. "You holding up, Mama?" I looked at her face, at the smooth skin, the careful expression. "I'm fine," I said. She stepped back, watching me closely, then nodded and turned away. Reuben did not hug me. He muttered something about calling later and walked toward his car without looking back. By the time I was alone, the cemetery felt too large, too quiet. I sat in my car with the engine off and took out my phone again. My hands were steadier now. Anger had replaced shock. Type back. "Who are you?" The reply came almost immediately. "You already know." My throat tightened again, but this time with a memory. A night many years ago. A signature on a paper I did not read. Elias telling me it was for our protection. I had trusted him then. I started the engine and drove home, the grave shrinking in my rearview mirror. The house felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. Too clean, too quiet. Like it had already accepted his absence. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, my heart still racing. Another message came. "If you want the truth, listen carefully. Watch everyone, especially yourself." I slid down until I was sitting on the floor, my back against the door. At 63 years old, after a lifetime of obedience and silence, I realized my husband had not taken his secrets to the grave. He had sent them to me instead. I did not sleep that night. The house creaked the way it always had, but without Elias breathing beside me, every sound felt exposed. The refrigerator hummed. The clock in the hallway ticked too loudly. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once and went quiet. I lay on my side staring at the empty pillow. His scent was still there, faint but real. Soap and old cotton. I pressed my hand against the mattress where his shoulder used to be, as if my body expected him to roll over and complain about the cold. My phone rested on the nightstand, face down, silent. I was afraid to touch it. When morning came, the light through the curtains looked thin and weak. I sat up slowly, joints stiff, head aching. For a moment habit took over. I reached for the other side of the bed, ready to wake him, ready to say we were late. My hand met nothing. That was when it became real again. The funeral, the messages, the warning. I stood and dressed in the same black clothes from the day before. I did not bother fixing my hair. I made coffee for one, then poured the extra cup down the sink without thinking. The kitchen table was clean, too clean. Naomi had insisted on helping after the death. She had wiped everything, sorted papers, stacked mail. At the time I had been grateful. Now it felt like evidence erased. I sat down with a coffee and finally turned my phone face up. No new messages. I told myself to breathe. I told myself this was grief playing tricks on an old woman. Shock can make the mind cruel. I had heard that before. But Elias had always said grief did not invent details. It only uncovered them. The thought made my stomach tighten. I opened the drawer where we kept documents. Birth certificates, marriage license, insurance papers. Things that defined a life in ink and stamps. Most of Elias' papers were gone. I froze, my fingers still wrapped around the handle. Naomi. She had said she was organizing, making it easier for me. I had nodded, too tired to argue. I pulled the drawer open fully. The insurance policy remained. The deed to the house. But several envelopes were missing. Ones I remembered because Elias never let me touch them. I sat back in the chair slowly. My phone vibrated. I flinched hard enough to spill coffee onto my hand. The heat barely registered. "You are looking in the wrong place," the message said. My heart pounded. "Where are you?" I typed. "Safe," came the reply. "Safer than I would be with you." Anger rose sharp and fast. "You let me bury you," I typed. "You let me cry over a box." The pause before the reply felt long enough for regret to settle in. "I did not let you. I asked you not to ask questions. You agreed." My throat tightened. A memory surfaced, unwelcome. Years ago. A late-night knock. Elias nervous. papers spread on the table. Him saying it was better if I did not know everything. Him saying it was only temporary. I had signed where he pointed. Closed my eyes. What do you want from me now? I typed. I want you to remember who you married. The phone went silent again. I pushed back from the table and stood. The house felt like it was watching me. The walls held years of conversations I had not paid attention to. Laughter that now sounded rehearsed in my memory. I decided to start with the one place Naomi had not touched. The shed. Elias spent hours there, fixing things no one wanted anymore. Radios from the 70s. Broken fans. Boxes of wires labeled in his careful handwriting. The air inside smelled like dust and oil. Light came through the small window, cutting the room into pale strips. I began opening boxes. Most held what I expected. Parts, tools, old manuals. Then I found a metal case tucked under the workbench. It was locked. My heart began to race again. Elias was not a man who locked things without reason. I remembered the spare key. It was taped to the back of the breaker box inside the house. I had seen him put it there once and teased him for being predictable. I fetched it with shaking hands and returned to the shed. The lock opened easily. Inside were envelopes, a small burner phone, and a folded letter with my name written on it in Elias' handwriting. I sat on the floor and opened it. Ivy. If you are reading this, then something has already gone wrong. I am sorry for the fear this will bring you. I never wanted this life for you. Do not trust the timing of my death. Do not trust the people who benefit from it. If you still believe in me, wait. If you do not, burn this and forget you ever saw it. My vision blurred. Tears finally came, hot and heavy. I pressed the letter to my chest and cried alone in the shed, surrounded by the quiet evidence of a man I had never fully known. When I wiped my face and stood, I felt different. Older. Harder. I took the burner phone and slipped it into my purse. As I locked the shed, a car pulled into the driveway. Naomi. I watched her step out, sunglasses already on, posture straight. She smiled when she saw me. Mama, she said. We need to talk about the estate. I smiled back, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Yes, I said. We do. Naomi walked into the house like she owned it. She set her purse on the counter, glanced around the living room, and nodded as if approving the way everything stayed in its place. Her movements were controlled, practiced. The same way they had been since she was a teenager, who learned early how to hide disappointment behind polite smiles. I offered her coffee. She declined. I remained standing while she sat on the couch, crossing her legs carefully, smoothing her skirt. She pulled out a folder from her bag and placed it on the coffee table between us. I brought some paperwork, she said. Just to make things easier for you. Easier. The word landed wrong. What kind of paperwork? I asked. Estate matters. Insurance. Transfer of accounts. She tapped the folder lightly. Daddy did not leave a will, so this helped speed things up. Her voice was calm. To come. I sat across from her and folded my hands in my lap. When did you start handling this, Naomi? She hesitated for a fraction of a second. Right after he passed. Someone had to. That someone was not you, I said. Her lips tightened. Mama, I know this is hard, but you need help. You cannot do all this alone. I looked at her closely. At the way her jaw tensed when I did not immediately agree. At how her fingers kept brushing the edge of the folder like she was eager for me to open it. Did you take papers from the drawer? I asked. Her eyes flicked up fast. I organized them. Some are missing. She sighed softly like a patient parent. Some things were outdated. Daddy had accounts that no longer mattered. My heart beat faster, but my voice stayed steady. You should have asked me first. She leaned forward. Mama, with respect, you were in shock. You barely knew what day it was. That was true. And she knew it. I nodded slowly. Tell me something, Naomi. Did your father ever talk to you about money he kept separate from the family? Her shoulders stiffened. What kind of question is that? Simple one. She shook her head. Daddy was not that kind of man. I thought of the metal case in the shed. Cash. The burner phone. I stood and walked to the window, pretending to adjust the curtain. I needed a moment to breathe. From outside, the neighborhood looked the same as always. Lawns trimmed, cars parked neatly, people living lives they believed in. When I turned back, Naomi was watching me closely. "You are acting strange," she said. I smiled faintly. "I buried my husband yesterday." She did not smile back. There was a knock at the door before either of us could speak again. "Reuben." He stepped inside slowly, eyes moving between me and his sister. His face looked drawn, like he had not eaten. "Hey, Mama," he said quietly. Naomi straightened. "I did not know you were coming." He shrugged. "Thought I should check in." He avoided her eyes. I felt the tension shift in the room. Heavy. We were a family standing in the same space, carrying different truths. I excused myself to the kitchen, needing distance. As I filled the kettle, my phone buzzed in my pocket. "Do not sign anything." My hand tightened around the kettle handle. "She wants control," the message continued. "She thinks you are weaker than you are." I swallowed hard. "What about Reuben?" I typed. He knows more than he admits. Fear keeps his mouth shut." I turned the burner off and leaned against the counter, my legs trembling. From the living room, I heard Naomi's voice rise slightly. "Mama, can you come back? We need your signature." I walked in slowly. Naomi had spread documents across the table. Reuben stood nearby, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the floor. Picked up the pen. Then I set it down. "I am not signing anything today," I said. Naomi stared at me. "I need time." "Mama, this is not complicated." "It is to me." She stood abruptly. "We cannot just leave things floating. Bills, counts, you know that." "You do." "Then why are you doing this?" I met her eyes. "Because your father never liked to rush decisions." Reuben looked up sharply. Naomi's jaw clenched. "This is not like you. People change," I said. She grabbed her folder and shoved the papers back inside. "Fine. We will talk later." She walked toward the door, heels clicking sharply against the floor. As she reached for the handle, she turned back. "I hope you know what you are doing." "So do I thought." After she left, the house felt quieter again. Reuben remained standing. "You want to tell me something?" I asked. He shook his head quickly. "Oh, Mama." I watched him for a long moment. "Your father loved you," I said. He flinched. "He loved us both." Reuben swallowed hard. "Mama, if Daddy had secrets, it was to protect us." He nodded. "That is what he always said." Reuben looked at me then, really looked like he was seeing me for the first time. "Be careful," he said softly. I watched him leave. His shoulders hunched like he was carrying something too heavy for his frame. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table with the burner phone in front of me. I turned it on. One message sat waiting. "She is not who she pretends to be." Closed my eyes. For the first time, I wondered if the man I married had prepared me for this moment all along. The burner phone rang just after midnight. The sound was sharp and unfamiliar, cutting through the quiet like a warning. I stared at it for several seconds before answering. My hands were steady now. Fear had settled into something colder, more focused. I did not speak first. Ivy, Elias' voice said. It was low, tired, older than I remembered. My knees weakened, and I sat down hard at the kitchen table. "You let me think you were dead," I said. "No." That was all. I pressed my lips together, fighting the urge to cry. "Why?" I asked. "'Cause I ran out of time to explain." The words came slowly, like each one cost him something. The day I died was not the day I disappeared. It was the day I realized someone else wanted me gone for real. Closed my eyes. He exhaled. People I trusted. People I helped years ago. They never forgot what I did for them. Or what I refused to do later. My fingers tightened around the phone. Our children. Naomi wanted answers. Reuben wanted peace. That was not an answer. "I need proof," I said. "I will not live in shadows." "You already have the beginning," he replied. "The rest is on paper. Follow the money, Ivy. That is where truth gets careless." The line went dead. I sat there long after, staring at the dark screen. Follow the money. The next morning I drove to the bank. The building was small, old brick, familiar. Elias and I had opened our first account there decades ago. The clerk recognized me immediately. "I am sorry for your loss," she said gently. "Thank you." I asked to review recent account activity. She hesitated, then nodded. Some transactions were ordinary. Bills, groceries, repairs. Others were not. Large withdrawals. Spread over years. Carefully spaced. Not enough to attract attention. Accounts I had never seen before. My chest tightened as the clerk slid the papers toward me. "These are joint," she said. "You just never came in." I forced a smile. I did not need to. Driving home, my hands shook on the steering wheel. Elias had been preparing long before his death. Saving. Moving. Planning. And I had let him. At home, I laid everything out on the table. Statements. Notes from the shed. One name appeared repeatedly in small transfers. Glenn Harker. Pastor Glenn. The air left my lungs slowly. He had married us. Baptized our children. Prayed beside Elias' hospital bed years ago. I remembered how calm he had been at the funeral. How he never met my eyes. My phone buzzed. "You see it now," Elias wrote. "Why him?" I type. "Because faith is an easy place to hide money. And fear." My chest ached. I thought of Naomi's eagerness to move things quickly. Her confidence. Did she know? I decided to visit Pastor Glenn. The church smelled like old wood and cleaning solution. He greeted me warmly, sadness practiced but convincing. "Avi, I was just thinking about you." I sat across from him in his office. "I need to ask you something," I said. "Course. Did my husband ever give you money?" His smile did not fade, but his eyes changed. "Elias supported the church, yes. More than I knew," I said. He folded his hands. "Your husband was generous. Was he afraid, Pastor?" "Was. Ivy, grief can distort memories." I leaned forward. "So can lies." His jaw tightened. "You should go home." Understood. "I am not afraid anymore." His voice dropped. "You should be." I left the church with my heart pounding. That evening Naomi called. "Mama," she said. "We need to finish this." I agreed to meet her the next day. Not at the house. At the diner off Route 6. Neutral ground. That night another message came. "If she asks about the accounts, deny everything." I stared at the phone. "No more secrets," I typed. Long pause. "Be careful." I turned off the light and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, I understood that truth did not bring peace. It brought consequences. The diner smelled like grease and burnt coffee, the kind of place that never really closed even when the sign said it did. I arrived early and chose a booth near the window. The vinyl seat stuck to the back of my legs through my dress. I welcomed the discomfort. Kept me awake. Naomi arrived exactly on time. She slid into the booth across from me and placed her purse beside her, close enough to guard. Her eyes scanned the room before settling on my face. "You look tired," she said. She ordered coffee without looking at the menu. Black. No sugar. Just like her father. We sat in silence until the waitress walked away. "Mama," Naomi began, "we need to talk seriously. This situation cannot drag on." I folded my hands on the table. "Then talk." She took a breath. "There are accounts. Responsibilities. Daddy left things unfinished." I watched her carefully. "What kind of accounts?" Her eyes flickered just for a second. "You know. Savings. Insurance." I shook my head. "Not all of them." She leaned back. "What are you saying?" I met her gaze. "I am saying your father had money I did not know about. And I am saying you might have known." Her lips pressed together. "You sound confused." I pulled a folded paper from my purse and placed it between us. "Bank statements." Her face went still. "Where did you get those?" "They were always there." She stared at the paper, then pushed it back toward me. "This does not change anything." "Changes everything." Her voice sharpened. "Mama, you do not understand how complicated this is. Explain it to me." She exhaled slowly. Daddy was scared. He thought people were watching him. He moved money because he believed it kept us safe. Was he wrong? I asked. She did not answer. Did you help him, Naomi? Her eyes lifted to mine. The word landed heavy. I felt a dull ache behind my eyes. 'Cause he asked me to. 'Cause you never questioned him. Someone had to be practical. Practical. Did you know he was alive? I asked quietly. Her breath caught. Did you know the man we buried was not my husband? She stared at me like I had spoken another language. Mama, stop this. Answer me. She shook her head. You are grieving. I leaned forward. Talk to him. Silence stretched between us. Her hand trembled as she reached for her coffee. That is not possible, she said. He called me Naomi. Her face drained of color. You are lying. I shook my head. He warned me about you. Her eyes flashed. Of course he did. The bitterness in her voice startled me. You do not know what he put me through, she continued. The secrets, the fear, the nights he disappeared. You chose not to see it. My voice stayed calm. And you chose to take his place. She slammed her cup down. I chose to survive. People turned to look. She lowered her voice. He made enemies. Real ones. You think a funeral makes that disappear. I sat back slowly. So you helped him vanish. She hesitated. I helped him prepare. And now I said you want control. She laughed softly without humor. Control is the only thing that keeps people alive. Understood. This conversation is over. She grabbed my wrist. If you do not sign those papers, things will get worse. Pulled free. For who? She did not answer. That night a message came late. She knows now. I replied. Do I? Sleep lightly, Ivy. I did not sleep at all. Reuben came to the house the next afternoon without calling. I heard his car before I saw him, the engine idling longer than usual, like he was deciding whether to leave. When he finally knocked, it was soft, uncertain. I opened the door and stepped aside. He walked in slowly, eyes scanning the living room as if he expected something to jump out at him. You look worse than yesterday, he said. So do you. He managed a small smile and sat on the edge of the armchair. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight. Mama, he said, his voice low, I need to tell you something before Naomi does. I sat across from him. Then tell me. He swallowed. Daddy came to me first. My heart skipped. When? Months ago. He said he was in trouble. Real trouble. I closed my eyes briefly. Did you see him? Well, he called. Always from different numbers. He sounded scared. Reuben rubbed his face. He said people from his past were looking for him. That he had taken something that did not belong to them years ago. Money, I said. He nodded. He said if they thought he was dead they would stop looking. And you believed him. Had to, Mama. He begged me not to tell you. Said it would destroy you. Tears filled his eyes. I was trying to protect you. I reached across the space and took his hand. It was cold. Did Naomi know? Did she plan the funeral? He nodded again. She handled everything. My chest tightened. Who is in that grave, Reuben? He shook his head. I do not know. Daddy would not tell me. He said the less I knew, the safer I would be. I squeezed his hand. Now I am scared, Mama. Of what? That she has gone too far. He looked up at me. Naomi does not want him to come back. Not ever. I thought of her words at the diner. Control is the only thing that keeps people alive. I let go of Reuben's hand. What do you want me to do? He hesitated. I want you to be careful. And I want you to forgive me. I stood and pulled him into a hug. He clung to me like a child, shoulders shaking. Already have, I said. After he left, the house felt heavier. My phone buzzed. He talked to you. He will stay quiet. Not forever, I typed. Another pause. Neither will I. I stared at the screen. What does that mean? Means the past is done running. That night, I dreamed of the grave opening. The knock came just after sunset. 3 slow taps. Measured. Confident. I stood in the hallway for a long moment, listening to my own breathing. The house was quiet. wrapped in that heavy evening stillness that settles over Briar Hollow when people retreat behind their doors. I knew who it was before I opened it. Pastor Glenn stood on the porch, his hands folded in front of him, his face calm in a way that felt rehearsed. The porch light cast sharp shadows across his features. "Good evening, Ivy," he said. "May I come in?" I did not move. "What do you want, Pastor?" His smile softened. "I heard you have been asking questions." I stepped aside and let him enter. I did not offer him a seat. He looked around the living room like a man revisiting familiar ground. "This house holds many memories," he said. "Elias loved this place." "Did he love it enough to lie to me in it?" I asked. Pastor Glenn exhaled slowly. "Elias was afraid. So you keep saying." He turned to face me. "And you should be afraid too." My pulse quickened, but my voice stayed steady. "Is that a threat? A warning?" I crossed my arms. "About what?" "About pulling threads that do not belong to you." I laughed quietly. "Everything in my life belongs to me." His eyes hardened. "You have documents you should not have. You have money that was never meant for you to see." I stepped closer. "It was my husband's money. It was not his to keep." The silence stretched between us. Then he spoke again, lower. "There are people who believe Elias betrayed them. People who do not forgive. They believe his death settled the debt. And if they learn otherwise—" I finished the sentence for him. "They will come looking." He nodded once. "For you." Anger flared hot in my chest. "You stood at his funeral and prayed over a lie." "I prayed for your safety." "You prayed for your silence," I said. His jaw tightened. "You should let this go." I shook my head. "I've spent my life letting things go." He studied me, then sighed. "You were always stronger than he gave you credit for." "Tell me the truth," I said. "All of it." He hesitated, then spoke. "Elias helped move money years ago. He kept records. When he refused to destroy them, he became a problem. So you helped him disappear." "I helped him die on paper." My stomach turned. "Naomi." His eyes flickered. "Your daughter is ambitious. She took advantage of fear. When he left, she stepped in. She thought she could control what came next. And you let her." He met my gaze. "I thought it was safer than the alternative." He moved toward the door. "Do not contact Elias again, Ivy. If he reaches out, do not respond." I followed him to the door. "And if I do, then you will be alone when consequences arrive." After he left, my hands trembled. My phone buzzed almost immediately. "He came," Elias wrote. "I told you he would." I sat down heavily. "I am tired of hiding," I typed. "Am I?" "Then come home," I wrote. The pause felt endless. Finally. "Not. Wait. Because if I do, everything will burn." I stared at the words until they blurred. That night I did not lock the door. I wanted the truth to walk in if it dared. I went to the cemetery before sunrise. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of wet grass and old earth. A thin fog clung to the ground, curling around the headstones like it was trying to hide what lay beneath. I parked far from the gate and walked the rest of the way, my shoes sinking slightly with every step. Elias' grave stood at the edge of the lot, fresh dirt darker than the rest. The flowers Naomi ordered were already wilting. Cheap arrangements meant to look generous for one day. I stood there for a long time, listening to my own breathing. "If you are alive," I whispered, "then this place is a lie." My phone vibrated in my coat pocket. "You should not be there." "How did you know?" I typed. "Because I never stopped watching my own funeral." My chest tightened. "What is under that dirt?" Another pause. Someone who needed to disappear more than I did. Felt dizzy. "Did you kill him?" "No." "But you let him die." "Yes." The honesty hit harder than any excuse. I knelt slowly and pressed my hand to the soil. It was cold and firm already, packed down by workers who believed in the job they were doing. I remembered signing papers years ago without reading them, trusting a man because he was my husband, because he kissed my forehead and told me not to worry. I stood and brushed the dirt from my hands. "I am done protecting you," I typed. "You already have." "No more," I wrote. The reply came faster than before. If you expose this, Naomi will go down with me. I stared at the screen. She made her choices. So did you. I walked back to my car with my legs shaking but my mind clear. When I got home, Reuben was waiting on the porch. Mama, he said quickly. Naomi is furious. Open the door. But he followed me inside. She says Pastor Glenn warned her. I poured myself a glass of water. Warned her about what? About you. He nodded. She wants to force you to sign everything today. Tell her no. He hesitated. She will not accept that. Then she will learn. My phone buzzed again. You are crossing a line. Type back slowly. I crossed it 41 years ago when I stopped asking questions. The typing indicator blinked, then stopped. No reply came. That evening, Naomi arrived unannounced. She did not sit. She paced the living room, anger sharp in every movement. You went to the cemetery, she snapped. Are you trying to destroy us? I looked at her. I'm trying to stop lying. You think truth will save you, she said bitterly. It will not. I stepped closer. Then what will? Control, she said without hesitation. I shook my head. That is fear talking. She stared at me, eyes bright with something close to panic. If you do this, Mama, you will lose everything. I met her gaze. I already lost my husband. She laughed sharply. You never had him. The words cut deep, but they did not break me. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. That night, my phone stayed silent. For the first time since the funeral, I slept. I woke before dawn with a strange calm in my chest. The kind that comes when fear has finally exhausted itself. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching the light creep in through the window. The house no longer felt empty. Felt honest, like it had stopped pretending to be something it was not. 6:15, my phone buzzed. One message. They know. I did not ask who. I already understood. What happens now, I typed. What should have happened years ago. I finished my coffee and set the cup in the sink. I changed into clean clothes, slow and deliberate. I brushed my hair. I put on the gold earrings Elias gave me on our 20th anniversary. If this was the day everything surfaced, I would not face it as a frightened widow. I would face it as myself. The knock came at 8. Not Pastor Glenn. Not Naomi. Two men stood on the porch. Plain clothes. Mice. Mrs. Caldwell once said. We need to ask you some questions. I stepped aside. They sat at the kitchen table where Elias once read the newspaper. I answered carefully. Truthfully. I did not protect anyone. When they left, my phone rang immediately. Naomi. Do not talk to them, she said sharply. Already did. There was silence on the line, then breathing. You do not understand what you have done. I understand exactly what I have done. You chose him over us, she said. Chose myself. She hung up. Reuben came later. He looked pale, shaken. They came to my work, Mama. He nodded. Sit down. He did. Is it over? Well, but it has started. He held his head in his hands. Daddy ruined everything. I reached out and touched his shoulder. Your father ran. Your sister controlled. You hid. And you, Mama. I told the truth. That afternoon, Pastor Glenn was arrested. I watched the news in silence. His face looked smaller on the screen. That night, my phone buzzed one last time. I'm sorry, Ivy. I stared at the message for a long time. So am I typed. The typing indicator blinked, then disappeared. The house was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not the hollow silence that followed the funeral. This one felt settled, like dust after a storm. Morning news confirmed what I already knew. Pastor Glenn had been charged. Financial crimes. Identity fraud. Conspiracy. They did not say my name, but I heard it between the lines. The reporters spoke as if the truth had always been obvious. Never is. Reuben stayed with me for a few days. He moved carefully through the house, like he was afraid of breaking something fragile. We ate simple meals. We spoke only when needed. On the third night, he stood in the doorway of my bedroom. Mama, he said, I do not know how to live with this. I sat on the bed. Neither do I. He nodded slowly. But we will learn. Naomi did not come back. Her lawyer called instead. Then another one. I listened, answered what I could, and said no more than necessary. Control slipped from her hands the way it slips from anyone who believes fear can hold forever. A week passed. Then another. One afternoon I drove back to the cemetery. Not to the grave. To the office. Asked questions. Signed forms. Watched faces change as understanding settled in. The grave would be opened. Quietly. Properly. I did not stay to watch. At home that evening, I sat alone on the porch as the sun went down. The air smelled like cut grass and warm earth. The same smells that had followed me my whole life. My phone buzzed. One final message. You were braver than I ever was. I read it once. Then again. Type back. I learned too late. No reply came. I did not expect one. I turned the phone off and set it inside the house. I did not carry it with me when I stepped down into the yard. At 63 years old, I stood barefoot on the grass and breathed deeply. I thought about the woman I had been. Quiet. Obedient. Loyal to a fault. I thought about the woman I was becoming. Someone who understood that silence is a choice. And so is truth. The house behind me held a lifetime of memories. Some real, some false. All of them mine now. I walked back inside and closed the door gently. This story teaches that silence can be as dangerous as wrongdoing. Trust without awareness can allow deception to grow quietly inside families, institutions, and relationships. True strength does not always come from control, power, or fear, but from the courage to face uncomfortable truths, even when those truths threaten stability. The story also reminds us that age does not weaken the ability to choose honesty. It is never too late to stop protecting lies, never too late to reclaim one's voice, and never too late to live with integrity. Loyalty should never require self-erasure, and love should never demand blindness. Finally, the story shows that every choice carries consequences. Running from the past only delays its return. Only truth, however painful, can bring real accountability and the possibility of peace. This story is a work of fiction. All characters, events, locations, and situations are entirely imagined and created for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to real people or real events is purely coincidental. The story is written to feel realistic so that readers and listeners can reflect on its message and take meaningful lessons from it. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If this story moved you, taught you something, or made you reflect, please share your thoughts in the comments. Do not forget to like and subscribe so you do not miss future stories like this.